Picture this. You're, revving the engine of a quad, the Baja sun is beating down on your shoulders, and you're just staring out at this endless expanse of rugged desert scrub, and it just meets this deep, brilliant blue of the Sea of Cortez.
Oh, yeah. It's a gorgeous image.
It really is. And, I mean, for decades, Baja California has been heavily romanticized as this ultimate Wild West. It was this sun-drenched frontier for expats, digital nomads, off-road adventurers.
Right, a place where you could basically set up a tour company right out of your truck.
Exactly. Run motorcycles and ATVs from the border down to Ensenada, all the way to Cabo, with little more than a handshake, some cash, and a dream.
It was basically the definition of a laissez-faire economy. Just totally unregulated recreation.
But, and this is a big but, if you are holding on to that image, or, if you're planning a trip down there expecting that kind of freewheeling environment, you really need to radically update your mental map.
You absolutely do.
Yeah.
Because as of the first quarter of 2026, that era is officially dead.
Completely dead. And that brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We are unpacking the newly updated 2026 regulatory framework, focusing specifically on foreign service providers.
Right, the people running those iconic motorcycle and ATV quad tours through the deserts and the local communities.
Yeah, the communities known as ejidos across both Baja California and Baja California Sur. We're going to figure out what it actually takes to survive and operate in this completely transformed era.
Which is, it's crucial to understand right from the start. Because this isn't just a minor administrative update. We aren't talking about, a new form to fill out at the local municipality.
Definitely not.
The entire region has transitioned to a model of active enforcement. And the goal here is profound. It's designed to aggressively protect local communities, their culture, and their environment from being exploited by extractive, parasitic business models.
So compliance is no longer a suggestion. It is the absolute, non-negotiable price of admission. Okay, let's unpack this. Before a foreign tour operator can even think about turning the key in an ATV ignition, they have to fundamentally understand who actually owns the dirt they're riding on.
Exactly. It all starts with the land. You just cannot grasp the 2026 regulations without understanding the concept of ejido sovereignty.
And that's tied to the Mexican Constitution, isn't it?
Yeah, it's anchored deep in Article 27 of the Constitution and the agrarian law. So the local ejido general assemblies, which are the communal landholders, they have absolute sovereign authority over these territories.
They're basically like mini nations within the state.
That's a great way to put it. To run a commercial tour through their land, a foreign operator must secure what is called a social license to operate, or an SLO.
Wait, a social license? I mean, that sounds like, I don't know, a polite agreement over a beer, maybe a handshake deal where you just promise not to kick up too much dust.
I know it sounds that way, but it is the exact opposite of a handshake deal. It is a legally binding 100-year symbiotic agreement.
100 years, wow.
Yes, and it has to be formally registered with the National Agrarian Registry, the RAN. This acts as an industrial-grade legal shield for the community.
So what does the ejido actually require for that?
They demand empirical proof that your business will provide a net positive benefit to their ecosystem and their economy for the next century. If you fail to prove that, you are simply denied access to the resources.
Hold on, let me just wrap my head around that. 100-year agreement. That is multiple generations. How can an expat running like a small quad tour guarantee a net positive impact for a century? That sounds practically impossible to enforce on a small business.
Well, the time frame is intentionally demanding. It forces the operator to stop thinking in terms of, how much money can I make this season, and start thinking about generational stewardship.
So they're vetting your long-term intentions.
Exactly. The ejidos are essentially saying, if you want to use our ancestral land to make a profit, your business model must be sustainable enough to benefit our grandchildren. And they're testing this alignment before you even apply.
I noticed that in the sources. The very first test of compliance isn't even about the vehicles or the money. It's simply what you call the place on your marketing brochures.
Yes, geographical identity is now a primary filter for risk.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Take a bay in the region historically known as Ensenada de Muertos. Over the years, foreign developers tried to rebrand it with a more expat-friendly, marketable name. They called it Bahía de los Sueños, Bay of Dreams.
Oh, right, to make it sound nicer for tourists.
Exactly. But under the 2026 rules, if a foreign tour operator uses that defunct developer name on their website, or even on their GPS maps, Federal inspectors consider it an immediate red flag.
Wow, it's treated as this glaring marker of gringofication. It's like walking into a stranger's house, seeing their dog, and deciding, you know what, I'm going to call him Sparky instead of his actual name.
That's a perfect analogy.
It's just an immediate sign of disrespect. It's a dead giveaway to the authorities that the operator has zero connection to the local laws, the culture, or the history. You are literally flagging yourself as an outsider who doesn't respect the sovereignty of the people who actually own the land.
Because identity dictates legitimacy. Failing that basic test of respect invites intense regulatory scrutiny before an inspector even sets foot in your office.
Wow.
The assumption is, if you won't respect the historical name of the land, you certainly won't respect the environmental regulations protecting it.
That makes a lot of sense. So assuming you get the name right and you respect the Ishido's authority, that's just step one. To operate legally in 2026, foreign-led ATV and motorcycle tours have to totally restructure their business models.
They really do. You can't just be a digital nomad with a few dirt bikes and a slick website anymore. The shadow economy has been entirely purged.
Right.
To insulate yourself from total civil liability, foreign tour companies must officially incorporate as a Mexican business.
Let's translate some of the acronym soup here, because the regulations are dense. They mandate structures like an SDRL or an SADCV.
Right, which are the standard corporate structures there.
Yeah, for anyone unfamiliar, an SDRL is essentially the Mexican equivalent of an LLC, and an SADCV is a traditional corporation. You have to physically go to a Mexican notary and build a legitimate corporate entity.
And then you have to register with the SAT, which is the Mexican equivalent of the IRS, so you can issue legal trackable invoices. After that, you must obtain an employer registration certificate from the INM, the National Institute of Migration.
And that immigration certificate is where the rubber really meets the road, I think, because of the 90-10 mandate.
Yes, the 90-10 rule is a game changer.
Put yourself in the shoes of someone wanting to start an off-road tour business in Baja. You might think you can just hire a couple of your expat buddies to lead the rides. But under this 90-10 rule, federal labor law legally forces you to integrate and uplift the local workforce immediately.
Right. 90% of a company's workforce must be Mexican nationals.
90%? That's huge.
It is. The era of hiring unpermitted foreign guides to run tours under the table is over. Displacing local workers is now viewed by the authorities as a direct attack on the social fabric of the community.
And they're aggressively policing how those locals are treated, too. The 2026 reforms force a transition to a strict 40-hour work week. You can't just write hours down in a notebook to prove compliance either.
No. Operators have to use inalterable electronic time tracking logs. Having paper logs is actually viewed as evidence of non-compliance during an audit.
Because paper is just too easy to fake.
Exactly. Paper is far too easy to manipulate. The digital integration ensures complete transparency for labor inspectors. And because motorcycle and ATV tours are classified as adventure tourism, they trigger a whole secondary layer of specific regulations.
These are the NUMs, right? The official Mexican standards.
Yes, the NNUMs. You need a National Tourism Registry number. You have to comply with the federal standard for safety protocols, which requires emergency manuals and strict auditable maintenance logs for every single vehicle.
And the guides themselves fall under a separate federal standard. They have to be specialized, carry authorized CPR certifications, and possess deep, verifiable knowledge of the specific geography.
Right. They can't just be some guy who likes to ride fast.
Exactly. Then there's the insurance requirement. You can't just buy standard traveler's insurance online anymore. You need specific Mexican vehicle liability policies that explicitly cover commercial off-road use, which is incredibly niche and highly regulated.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, all of these labor and administrative hurdles serve a distinct purpose. They ensure that foreign capital doesn't just pass through the region, but actually anchors into the Mexican economy.
It forces a real investment.
It forces the transfer of high-level skills to the local workforce and ensures that the business is contributing heavily to the tax base rather than just extracting profit and leaving behind worn-out trails.
Extracting is the perfect word there, because compliance isn't just about paying taxes and hiring locally. It's deeply tied to the physical footprint these tours leave behind. The entire 2026 mandate revolves around symbiotic stewardship versus parasitic extraction.
Yes, the region has adopted what they call the agua amarga model. It requires a complete mental migration for these operators.
A mental migration, I like that.
You have to shift from a cut-and-run mentality to a mindset of high-value conservation.
And they put a literal heavy price tag on that mindset. Foreign ATV companies are now required to hold a 10-year resource management bond in escrow. How does that actually work mechanically? I mean, who holds the money?
It acts as an insurance policy for the desert. A calculated sum of money is locked in a neutral escrow account. It's a financial guarantee that if the company goes bankrupt, violates their social license, or simply abandons the project, the ejido has immediate access to the funds.
Funds required to physically remediate the desert environment.
Exactly. They can use that money to repair eroded dunes, replant native flora, and restore the landscape to its pre-commercial state.
So the community never gets left holding the bag for a failed tourist venture. That's brilliant. Furthermore, legitimate businesses are strictly monitored for their contribution to the community infrastructure. There's this 488 peso tourist tax known as the Embrace It tax.
Right, the Embrace It tax.
Evasion of this tax is considered a primary indicator that a business is acting as a parasite, failing to pay into the local health services, the schools, and the roads that their very business relies on. Trying to bypass it just invites a full-scale federal audit.
It's a massive risk to take.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. When we think about the environmental impact of ATVs and motorcycles, we usually think about tire tracks in the sand, physical erosion, or maybe, exhaust fumes.
The visible stuff.
Yeah, the visible stuff. But the 2026 regulations focus heavily on a mechanism I had never even considered: acoustic smog.
Oh, this is fascinating. The noise footprint is treated with the exact same severity as physical pollution.
When I was looking into how they enforce shoreline rules, I assumed it was about protecting sunbathers or stopping dune erosion. But ATVs riding along the shoreline are now strictly monitored because the engine noise, this acoustic smog, actually penetrates the ocean water.
Yes, the Soralvo Channel, which borders these deserts, is a designated acoustic sanctuary.
And it's home to a resident population of, 20 to 22 eastern tropical Pacific orcas?
That's right. And these 2026 orca calves are thriving specifically because the community is fiercely protecting the acoustic integrity of that channel.
I read about this incredible hunting technique the orcas use. It's called the mobula slam.
It is a highly sophisticated, multi-generational behavior. The orcas literally herd thousands of mobula rays right up against the shallow shorelines.
The exact same shorelines where these off-road tours operate.
Precisely. The orcas then use massive fluke slaps to stun the rays. But this level of coordinated hunting relies entirely on razor-sharp acoustic communication between the pod members.
And the ATVs mess that up.
They do. High-frequency engine noise from the shore penetrates the water column and severely disrupts this. It elevates the animal's cortisol levels and literally breaks their communication lines.
It's like trying to coordinate a highly choreographed ballet in a pitch-black room, and suddenly someone drives a freight train through the wall. I mean, the engine noise completely blinds their acoustic vision.
That's a really vivid way to picture it.
So an ATV tour blasting along the beach isn't just an annoyance, it's actively disrupting an apex predator's ability to feed its young. It's a direct threat to the biological survival of the region.
And the health of those 2026 calves is the metric by which the local stewards measure their own success. Biologists look for the absence of something called peanut head.
Peanut head? What's that?
It's a postcranial depression right behind the blowhole that indicates severe malnutrition. Because the community has enforced these strict noise limits, even capping boat density and forcing boat engines into neutral on the water, the calves are plump and healthy. And the land-based operators are expected to uphold that exact same standard of acoustic respect.
Okay, so a foreign operator hears all this. The ejido sovereignty, the 90-10 labor rule, the massive escrow bonds, the acoustic smog restrictions, and maybe they think, you know what? Baja is massive. It's miles of empty desert. I'll just speed off into a remote canyon and fly under the radar.
A lot of them probably used to think that way.
Right. But if they think they can dodge this now, they are vastly underestimating the 2026 enforcement web.
They would be driving straight into a trap.
Huh.
The old shadow economy relied entirely on the fact that government agencies didn't communicate with each other.
Right. The left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing.
Exactly. But in 2026, there is unprecedented real-time coordination. We're talking about an interagency net involving the SAT tracking the money, the INM tracking the visas, the STPS, which is the Labor Department, tracking the workers.
And SEMARNET, the Environmental Ministry, tracking the ecological impact.
Yes. They cross-reference data constantly to detain violators.
Historically, getting different government branches to talk to each other is a nightmare, literally anywhere in the world. I mean, bureaucracy usually slows enforcement to a crawl. How are they actually coordinating this effectively in the field?
They have essentially crowdsourced the surveillance.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The local community uses a government portal called SEQUEL. It functions almost like a highly secure Yelp for whistleblowers.
Oh, wow.
It allows for real-time and honest reporting. So if a local Mexican business owner sees a foreign operator running an unpermitted quad tour, displacing local jobs, or ignoring the environmental rules, they just drop a pin and report them on SEQUEL.
And when those reports trigger an audit, it is a formidable display of state power. The National Guard is now deployed to provide security cordons during Joint Task Force operativos.
Yes, they literally surround and secure the perimeter of luxury developments and tour hubs.
Just to ensure the inspectors from those different agencies can do their jobs without any interference or intimidation, that is intense.
It is intense. And the consequences don't just stay in Mexico. If you are caught operating illegally, you don't just get a slap on the wrist or a small fine anymore. You are placed on a registry of identified offenders.
And this is a comprehensive digital database, right? It includes high-resolution photographs, verified international home addresses, and detailed records of your unauthorized work.
Yes, and they share this registry directly with international consulates to flag your passport.
Wait, real?
Absolutely. So an infraction in a remote desert canyon in Baja can lead to permanent travel restrictions and a lifetime ban from re-entering Mexico. The consequences literally follow you home.
It's a system of inescapable international accountability. But beyond the digital tracking and the National Guard cordons, there is an even more profound boundary set by the ejidos. It's what the regulatory framework calls the archaeological kill switch.
Yes, the East Cape and the dune systems contain what is known as the Cemetery of the Sea.
The Cemetery of the Sea. That sounds ancient.
It is. This is the ancestral territory of the Paracu, the ancient ocean people. They were elite, deep-water divers who thrived in this landscape long before European contact.
So the archaeology of the region isn't just history. It's deeply tied to the community's modern identity and sovereignty.
Exactly. The regulations point to specific sacred burial sites, places designated as BC 111 and BC 114.
And if an ATV tour goes off trail and disturbs remains that show those hyperdolichocephalic skulls, these distinct, long, narrow skulls unique to the Paracu, or if they uncover remains painted with red ochre, it triggers the kill switch.
Which is an immediate, permanent, and irrevocable halt to all commercial activity or ground disturbance in that entire area.
Wow, just completely shut down.
Completely. It's a legal, absolute, firmly registered with the Agrarian Registry. There is no appeals process. There is no fine you can pay to make it go away. The land is sealed.
This raises an important question, doesn't it?
It really does. This raises an important question. How often do we see a developing tourist destination place the preservation of its ancient heritage and its ecological health so far above the immediate influx of foreign cash?
It's rare, very rare.
It shows how incredibly serious Mexico is, and specifically these ejidos are, about protecting their legacy from being paved over, or in this case, run over by off-road tires.
So what does this all mean? The dream of the unregulated Wild West of Baja is over. Legitimacy for foreign tour operators in 2026 requires strict adherence to labor ratios.
Right, that 90-10 rule.
Yeah. It requires a profound, legally binding respect for ejido sovereignty and a tangible financial commitment to improving the community paying into local infrastructure, health services, and schools, rather than just extracting profit from the dirt.
Because the privilege of operating in these spectacular landscapes comes with the heavy responsibility of deep systemic stewardship. You either integrate completely, uplifting the people and protecting the ecosystem, or you are excluded permanently.
Whether you're a tourist looking to book a quad tour for your next vacation, or an entrepreneur hoping to start a business down in Baja, understanding this massive cultural and legal shift is vital. You have to ensure you aren't funding the problem, or inadvertently becoming part of a shadow economy that threatens the very region you want to enjoy.
Ignorance of the law or the culture is simply no longer a viable business strategy.
Which leaves us with this final thought. If a local community, like the ejidos of Baja Sur, can successfully leverage the Mexican Constitution to mandate a 100-year symbiotic agreement, an agreement that legally forces foreign capital to truly integrate, hire locally, and protect everything from ancient burial sites to the acoustic clarity of the ocean for baby orcas, could this aggressive Baja model become the blueprint for saving vulnerable tourist destinations all across the globe? It's something to think about the next time you hear an engine revving in the desert.